나와 홍신나 북번께 투신나 샤바와키 신나무 키크라니 짜이 샤바키라니 짜이무 키크라니
Oprah and Kamala had me crying. It's like the nostalgia of Oprah in the 90s after high school, but like with the hope of today with Kamala, and there's a Swiftie right behind him. I love it so much.
I'm in that I think we had no audio from the very beginning of that. Apologies in advance, as of course, that was Clint's girlfriend, and she's crying because she's also very happy to, of course, be with him. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Rudowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com. Thank you to the Telegram channel that I'm in right now that says, hey, there's no audio going on here, so we apologize to that, and we'll just clip it at the end of this particular broadcast, as we're going to be going live for the next 2 hours, and we greatly appreciate all of you guys sharing this broadcast with your friends and family members. There's some really weird things happening with the algorithm, and it really does mean a lot to us that you guys copy the URL and get it out there to the general public. You could also participate in today's conversation by signing up to lukeunfiltered.com, and I'm in there right now, and that's how you guys told me there was no audio. So thank you so much to the members who, of course, will be calling in, as we are also going to be doing an in real life meetup this Friday, 7 p.m. here in South Beach, Miami. You want to be a part of that meetup? You want to touch grass? You want to meet other people? Come out and sign up to lukeunfiltered.com. We also will be prioritizing your super chats on mysuperchat.com, the Streamlabs link that, of course, gives you a 3% service charge. And we're going to be doing a giveaway, of course, like we always do, through wearechange.shop, as we have a lot of really crazy news to talk about right now, as the United States just literally announced that they are going to be sending in additional U.S. military members to the Middle East, as there's already 40,000 of them deployed, as Russian state TV is now showing videos of London being nuked, while the DOJ released a lunatic letter essentially putting a bounty on Donald Trump, as there are allegedly 5 assassination teams right now. All of this as Telegram just announced that they're going to be sharing your information with authorities. We're going to be discussing that, plus a lot more, all here for the next 2 hours with some really awesome, incredible individuals. The first of one is Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor and pleasure. For the people who might not know who you are you, and how would you introduce yourself?
Hey, delighted to be here. I'm Dinesh D'Souza. I am a writer and a filmmaker, and I've done 8 documentary films. The latest one will be in theaters this weekend. It's called Vindicating Trump, and the website is vindicatingtrump.com, so that's where you get movie tickets. And I have a book of the same title coming out early in October. So that's a little summary of who I am.
We have the trailer for your movie as well that I actually saw. I was watching the latest Daily Wire movie in the movie theaters here, and I was like, oh, that's our guest Monday. I was showing off to the lady friend that I was at the movies with. So I was like, yeah, that guy's going to be on our show. So we have a lot to talk about, especially with the topic of your documentary, which is something that YouTube doesn't like us talking about as well, but something that I think is important to talk about, especially since we are, 42 days away from this big upcoming galvanizing, changing event in American history that there might be some questions about. So we'll get into all of that. Jason Rink is also here, also a documentary filmmaker as well. Jason, who are you?
Well, thank you for having me, and great to meet you, Dinesh. Yes, I make films, and I can't talk about any of them right now because they're all like challenging regime narratives. So I'll leave it at that.
The regime doesn't like that.
No, not at all. So it's caused me a little bit of difficulty in my life. But I am also the guy who drove Ye to the Alex Jones show, which some people know me as that guy too. And I think I can still say that on YouTube and it'd be fine. So.
We're canceled. We're done. No. Why? Jason. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, Kanye was on the Tim Pool show. I was on there as well. He skipped out. We have a portrait of him that he was supposed to sign on the walls here that Michael Malice signed for us, by the way. So,
there he is.
So there he is right there as well. But thank you, Jason,
Anyway,
so much for joining us.
glad to be here.
I think there's definitely a lot to talk about when it comes to filmmaking, documentaries. As, of course, in the beginning of this video, we were all just shunned to silence with the beauty of Clint's girlfriend. Right, Clint?
Yeah. By the way, I'm also Clint Russell. Hello, host of Liberty Lockdown and co-host of the Best Political Show, which you are watching right now. I am also a filmmaker, but all of my films were confiscated by the feds at that raid at Diddy's mansion, which is unfortunate. But I am a very high-level home video producer. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah,
and we've got a new button person.
They were like an Abrina Abrovimich style documentary things that you were into.
I would
were
never
pretty,
do that.
Pretty next level.
No.
And it looks like Martha beat up Stephanie and took her spot. Martha, why'd you do that?
I did. You know what? Because I love doing Steffi's job, so I gave her the night off. So Martha Bueno here. You can find me at Bueno for Miami on X and IG.
All right, let's start the conversation off with the biggest story that's developing right now. And that, of course, is the United States officially announcing, hey, we have about 40,000 troops in the Middle East. Let's send in a little more, as, of course, this is a major story, especially with all the latest developments that are happening inside of Lebanon, as a lot of people are saying the troops that left, the troops that the Donald Trump administration and in part also the Biden administration took out, they're just going to bring them back in because why not? As this is, I think, a major issue, especially with the terrifying events in Beirut, highlighting larger escalations. And I don't know about you guys, but automatically looking at this story, reading into this story, seeing the developments that are happening here, I'm like, they're losing the polls. They're not doing that well. I think they might be trying to provoke a larger kind of galvanizing event to have a larger excuse for more kind of emergency powers. That's just my initial take on it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm thinking the military-industrial complex is just like afraid that Trump's going to win, and they're like, let's see if we can create as many opportunities to get the cash flows in the door before that new administration. You know, they can start cutting the checks, all of that, and we can just be carried into these conflicts into that new administration. So, I mean, it's a pretty smart play if you're thinking about it strictly from their, the cash flow standpoint, but that's what it seems like.
Yeah, especially if you have Donald Trump potentially becoming the next president of the United States, who's saying, I'm going to end the wars. I'm going to stop the wars from happening. It looks like they might be just going for broke here. I think that's a potential that I think is worth kind of thinking about here. And it's kind of dangerous because we're not only playing with fire, but we're playing with nuclear weapons as well.
Donald Trump says, I just want the world to stop killing itself, and that's just not a popular message.
What a radical. What a crazy person talking about peace.
The interesting thing, I think, is that we have recognized from Trump and from the MAGA movement this concept of war as a racket. And it's a little surprising, and I must say, from my early career, alien to me, because I'm a product of the Reagan era, the Cold War. And when I think back to that era, we recognize that government was pretty much horrible and incompetent at everything it did. but we kind of made an exception for the Defense Department. And so we'd be like, oh, welfare is run horribly, and it's a racket, and the housing is a racket, and the education system is run like a racket. But, when it comes to the MX missile, that's kind of a good thing. And we need to beat the Russians. And I think that as we fast forward, we now recognize that no, many of the areas of government that we thought were running straight, and I don't just mean the Defense Department, by the way, but even like, for example, the CDC or the NIH. I mean, I trusted the men in the lab coats. I think even Donald Trump trusted them in the first term. And we've now learned the level of opportunism and corruption. So I think our presumptive response to these things should always be no. The burden of proof is on them to show us that this needs to be done.
I just wanted to mention something because it's interesting. I got involved in politics in 2007 in the Ron Paul movement. And I remember him going on the debate stage and having an anti-war message, talking about war as a racket, and being like literally booed off the stage in like South Carolina. And so as pessimistic as I'm going to be, on one hand about what's happening here in the military industrial complex and the pro-war voices in Washington, D.C. still have a lot of sway, I do think it's very encouraging. And I think Donald Trump was an unlikely person to sort of popularize the more cynicism towards war being a good thing on the Republican side and really chasing the neocons out of the party once and for all, we're hoping. So it's a positive and a negative, right? We see this, we still have some work to do, but it is a positive thing that MAGA in general is starting to look with a skeptical eye at this type of activity.
I mean, I see it kind of in my own evolution or rethinking of this stuff, because I remember even when George W. Bush went into Iraq, the stated reason was preposterous. And so, but my mind was so conditioned that I thought the stated reason can't be the real reason. The real reason has to be something else. And I likened it to like, Clint Eastwood going into a bar where the bad guys are in there, but you don't really know who they are. And so what do? You just grab a few people and you pistol whip them. And that pretty much sends the message there's a new sheriff in town. This was kind of my invented rationale for the Iraq war at a time when I still supported that kind of thing.
I think it was Smedley Butler over 100 years ago that coined the war as a racket, term. So I think that he obviously has been proven prescient. I think that the political figure that probably was the most disrespected but deserves the most credit over the past 30 years, aside from Ron Paul, who you already referenced, is Pat Buchanan, who was an immigration hawk, non-interventionist who very much was on the same page of Smedley Butler. So I just wish that the message would reach the powers that be. The fact that we have Shapiro and Governor Shapiro and other politicians that are signing their names to missiles as they get shipped off to foreign wars that we're allegedly not even a participant in. It's deeply disturbing, and I think that the American people, by and large, have had enough of it, but the political apparatus has not got that message.
Yeah, there's no vote. There's no congressional approval. There's no debate. It's the U.S. military-industrial complex saying, yeah, we're just going to send more troops there. We already have a significant presence in the Middle East, which is very troublesome for a lot of the men and women there that are becoming more targets to the larger kind of radicalized elements in there that also our tax dollars financed in many different ways. So this is a kind of larger conundrum that's very difficult to deal with, but I do see a window of opportunity kind of closing in on a lot of these people in the Pentagon, on a lot of the people in the military-industrial complex, and this is why in the next 42 days, we are in such a very dangerous situation. Now, of course, there's larger escalations, not just in the Middle East. There's also larger escalations inside of Europe, as well as TV channels in Russia are literally broadcasting simulations of nuclear strikes on London. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is the type of video propaganda that people are getting on the other side of the pond, to say the least, here, as tensions between Russia and the United States are also at an all-time high here as well. So for me, in between now and those 42 days, anything could potentially happen. And I am kind of worried about these situations getting completely out of control, because if you're Zelensky, if you're Ukraine right now, You got Donald Trump. You got J.D. Vance saying war's over as soon as we get in there. And there's a big interest in not wanting that war to be over. It's not just interest, it's also money as well.
I think it's compounded by the fact that, you've mentioned the Trump factor, right? This is sort of like Trump is hovering outside the door, and that's one critical factor. But here's the other critical factor. Democrats have traditionally been the party of weakness, of surrender, of succumbing, of let you do whatever you want, let the bad guys run amok. Now you have Democrats running in a schizophrenia. They actually do all those things. They set the world on fire, but then they go to the other extreme, and Kamala is running as a hawk against Trump. So she is sounding all the neocon themes that never came out of Democrats for the past 30 years. And this is partly why people like Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney feel so comfortable embracing Kamala and endorsing her. But I think it creates an even more dangerous situation because it's kind of like inviting the bully. Hey, come on. And then you say, all right, I'm going to nuke you. I'm going to send more troops. I'm going to fireball you. And so it's almost like, make up your mind. Are you going to play tough guy or are you going to invite aggression? The Democrats are really doing both.
Yeah, geopolitically, it's not a smart strategy to kind of put out there on the world stage. And if you're looking out for America's interest, that's definitely not the way to do it. But I don't think they're looking out for America. I think they don't care about America, in my opinion.
For any of our young viewers, you won't know how profound what he just described was, to see this allegedly progressive Democrat run hard to the right of the GOP nominee during the debates a couple weeks ago. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was really like the contrast was very stark. If you've watched all of, I've been following politics forever now. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen the Democrats just be like, "We are the hawks. We're the ones that are going to maintain the world order.
We'll keep the course. We'll stay on par. We'll win."
Yeah, which is like, okay, if you were going to win, that argument may have had some validity, or at least it could sound plausible 2.5 years ago. It doesn't look as if you're going to drive Russia out of at least Crimea. So it just seems like a total canard. But that's what they're trying to sell. I hope that people won't buy it.
Yeah, and I think the war issue highlights the serious common ground that the establishment has, because they wanted somebody like Nikki Haley instead of Donald Trump. And some people who don't really understand how this two-party left and right establishment regime thing works is that, if they would get if it could have been Harris or Biden and Nikki Haley, many of the people who are in the halls of power that are looking to maintain control, that are looking to move global affairs in a particular direction, either one of them would have been satisfactory. It would have been a fake election. I'm not saying that in a votes way. I'm saying the choices would have been fake, right? You would have had two people that are really interchangeable on some of the issues that really matter to the very powerful.
I think if Haley gets the nomination, they don't even oust Biden.
Yeah,
because they would be totally happy with Nikki Haley.
Yeah, they're covered.
It also kind of turns the temperature down a little bit when it comes to the populist right wing. Well, at least it's your party's in power. You can't be upset anymore,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Part of what gave the neocons so much kind of confidence is that they believed that they were the true heirs of the Reagan legacy.
Yeah.
And I think that when we look back, we realize that that's in fact not true. Reagan was much more transactional in the manner of Trump than he's thought to be. And the classic example of this is the way that Reagan handled Gorbachev. So Reagan was very tough in the first term, accelerate defense spending, the MX missiles, strategic defense, and so on. But in the second term, Reagan pivoted. And if you go back and look, and I've written a book on this, so this is why I know this in detail, the neocons all started screaming at Reagan. You're an idiot. You don't understand. Gorbachev is made of the same stamp as Brezhnev and Chernenko and Andropov and, of course, Khrushchev. And so you have fallen for the Soviet lie. Reagan's view was, no, things are changing in the Soviet Union, and I can deal with Gorbachev, and we can actually end the Cold War. So this transactionalism, Reagan's pragmatism, his willingness to go pivot this way and then go the other way when the circumstances changed, this is exactly Trump. Because Trump is not an isolationist. Trump is like, listen, we need to prevent the Ukraine war from happening in the first place by telling Putin, this is going to be the consequence if you try this kind of nonsense. So Trump is very much, I'll deal with this guy in this way, and I'll deal with that guy in that way, and seems to be a far more sensible way to approach the world.
The other irony in this is that because he was willing to negotiate and to have kind of a better relationship with, he didn't just win the Cold War, he also basically collapsed the USSR. Like, he ended the most powerful communist nation at the time. And it just seems like there's always this hawkish attitude that, oh, well, we have to beat them on the battlefield. Once there's nuclear weapons on both sides, you can't really do that. And I don't know why we haven't. I mean, that was the lesson of the Cold War, if there was one, that you cannot have head-to-head conflict between nuclear powers. If you want to actually defeat these people, stop giving them a boogeyman to galvanize their population behind. I mean, that's how the USSR did it for decades, is that America was the problem. So
with Reagan, he truly converted Gorbachev. By that I mean Gorbachev became an admirer of Reagan. Gorbachev came to see Reagan when Eastern Europe was, in a sense, exploding, and Gorbachev's own power is threatened. And Gorbachev asked Reagan, "What should I do? I'm at the edge of the precipice." And Reagan basically goes, "Keep going." So think about this. He's talking Gorbachev about blowing up his own source of power, which is in fact what happened.
Wow.
But it was the relationship between those two men that helped bring that about.
And then if we bring that to current kind of context, the corporate media would be losing their ish, talking about how he was a Gorbachev lover and how they were having love affairs and they were colluding together and helping each other out. But in reality, if you look at history, the people who create detente, the people who create negotiations, the people who create peace are the most important people. But they always have to face this kind of avalanche of hatred and bigotry of individuals doing almost everything in their power in order to try to stop them. So that historical kind of relation is absolutely, I think, important to look back on, especially in modern context with what's happening with Russia.
Luke, you sound just like a Gorbachev puppet right now. I can't believe you would do that.
That Gorbachev money. What do they call?
Well, I mean, you know what is disappointing is that the one thing we did have in the Cold War era we don't seem to have now is any kind of real debate over what America's actual interests are. And not to mention the fact that there are different conflicts and they can't be seen under the same rubric. So it could be that we have a greater stake in the Middle East, for example, than we do in Ukraine. Ukraine is more distant. We have less dependency. We don't really have any allies over there per se. The Ukrainians seem to deal with us in a completely transactional way. I mean, they were, of course, paying the Biden family under the table to achieve their objectives. So part of what's happening is we're going into a very dangerous situation thoughtlessly, and that really should worry all of us.
Absolutely, because there's no real kind of consideration into why are we doing this? How long are we going to be invested in this? What is the course and what does winning actually mean? They haven't even defined those terms, and they just vehemently and very aggressively attack anyone who says, hey, we should stop this madness. No. You ask the question, why? They don't even have any real answers to you. There's no real kind of consensus here.
The other thing that's interesting when you just talk about the whole Reagan situation is I think it was that Biden hasn't spoken to Putin in 2 years or something like that. And it's like when Tucker Carlson interviews Putin, everybody loses their mind and everything. And this whole idea that conversations between different world leaders or hearing the perspective of what's happening over there, all of that's been completely shut down. And now it's just entirely about, there's this idea that some sort of diplomacy or something other than war and aggression can happen in a situation where conversation is verboten. You know what I mean? It's you can't have it. You can't do it.
Exactly right. I mean, we in some ways apply this kind of critical lens to our own country. So people will say things like, well, the American Indians really own the land and we've all taken the land from the Indians. And this is considered to be a valid claim. But if Putin says, well, Ukraine used to be part of Russia, we used to own that territory. In other words, you don't get to redraw the map and then say, well, everything has got to be locked in circa 1991, as if that sets the tone for everything. And therefore, I'm, quote, invading Ukraine. So I guess what I'm saying is that the importance of the dialogue is to be able to really hear the other side. I mean, I think even with Islamic radicalism, we should know what those guys are saying, how they're thinking, what their objectives are, how they see the Israeli conflict. This is completely... I mean, the line in the debate where they were taunting Trump, do you want Ukraine to win, yes or no? Kind of summarized the brutishness of our current debate.
Yeah, no, it was very obvious that and then they teed it up for Kamala right after Trump gives a very reasonable answers. I just want people to stop dying. She goes, he would give Putin whatever he wants. He would give him whatever he wants. It's like, all right, look, I honestly couldn't care less who wins that war. I just want it to end as soon as possible. It shouldn't have ever happened in the first place. I think those are all that's the debate we ought to be having is what was our State Department doing there for the past decade plus?
Yeah.
Why was it there a catalyst for Putin to feel as if this was necessary? We have leaked cables that demonstrate his arguments quite explicitly to Condoleezza Rice. That was over a decade ago now. But that conversation doesn't get had. It's just Putin puppet.
Well, and just on that Putin puppet thing, it's like it also brings into focus how damaging the whole Russiagate, trying to paint Trump as this particular individual who's bought and paid for by this foreign power. And, there's many, many people in this country who still just believe that. Like, it was drilled so long. And then you look at the situation that we're in now, and it's like, what are the downstream effects and impact? That stuff is contributing towards a trajectory of like World War III.
Well, this is why I'm so confident that it was an op that was being ran by either the CIA or the military-industrial complex more broadly, that they wanted to make the left bloodthirsty towards Russia because they would have been the party that would usually oppose that war. What they didn't expect is that it actually ended up being the right wing that became the non-interventionists when it comes to Russia.
Well, it was the predictive programming. It was the kind of repetition of Russia bad, all the way back in 2016, all the way back even in Hollywood. You look at a lot of the movies, it's always the big kind of Russian villains, and then you kind of run this larger kind of psychological operation. As we know, the Pentagon does plan a lot of these wars in advance, and then they just kind of use try to find the best justification for them, as we saw from U.S. General Wesley Clark, who came out in an interview with Democracy Now! And says, yes, there was a plan to invade all of these countries, and we have been following that plan. Iran is also on that particular list. And there's a lot of very interesting kind of news surrounding Iran, especially when it came to the lunatic that tried to take Donald Trump's life the second time around. As the DOJ just released a letter that was unredacted from this lunatic, from this attempted shooter, saying that he is putting a bounty on Donald Trump's head for $150,000. Now, why did the DOJ release this now? Why did they make it public when they previously made arguments with not releasing manifestos, not releasing this kind of information to not spur on other attacks? They did this to one specific incident that's too spicy to talk about on this particular YouTube channel.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. There you go. But they're doing it now publicly. But also in the letter, in the manifesto, and in the book of the second lunatic, he specifically is mentioning how Donald Trump was bad for his policies against Iran. This is a guy who is allegedly doing everything he can to support Ukraine, but at the same time, the Ukrainian government and the Iranian government aren't getting along. The Ukrainian government is actually threatening the Iranian government, but this guy is motivated by Trump's actions against Iran here. As again, I heard Iran once again, as there's this kind of weird nudge by the establishment trying to blame a lot of the attempts on Trump's life all on Iran, which I find very fishy and suspicious.
Yeah, because the Iran thing came out with the Crooks situation in that first one, and it got me actually thinking when the second one happened, if that, to the degree I buy anything that comes out of the intelligence agencies, whatsoever, but whether or not that Iran threat was actually related to this second guy and whether it had nothing to do with the first guy. And then in this whole letter situation, the question I have, number one, is this the full, this isn't the full letter, right? It's like one page?
Yes.
There is more to it?
I read the whole thing, so it's clear that there's multiple pages because it doesn't end.
Yeah.
It ends mid-sentence.
Yeah, so it's like, from that standpoint, I'm like, okay, they don't release certain writings from certain people. They release other ones very quickly. They release certain portions of other ones very quickly. And then the whole circumstances surrounding this I find bizarre, because, this letter's written in advance. They found it. It's sort of his, like, if I fail, right? It's not like he wrote this on the dashboard of his car when he was driving from the golf course. Like this was in advance, but this guy stinks in so many ways from the beginning. You know, I ended up calling his cell phone number when his identity was leaked online and got his voicemail message. And I was like, whoa, he's recruiting soldiers for Ukraine and Taiwan on this thing. And
in Afghanistan as well,
Yeah.
trying to get fake passports through Pakistan.
Yeah, so this whole guy stinks, in my opinion. Now he's, though, being handled by Ron DeSantis in Florida, which I'm asking myself, was that sort of a wrench in the works that wasn't planned, right? It looks like maybe Christopher Wray and the feds are sort of stonewalling a little bit. They're not really working with DeSantis. That word's coming out. So everything that comes out on this, for me, I'm always like, okay, grain of salt, who benefits? Why are we getting this? What is this doing to try to move a particular story framing around?
I mean, Trump is being protected by people who are desperate to get rid of him. Let's just put it that way bluntly, right?
Yeah.
So when you start asking questions like who benefits, there's no question that the Biden-Harris regime benefits from getting rid of Trump.
Sure.
And their rhetoric all but stops 1 inch short of saying that.
Sure.
Right? If you say things like, this guy's a mortal threat to the country, he's a danger to democracy, he subverts our constitutional republic, what are you saying other than that any means deployed against him to get rid of him?
Even just publishing the page that's got the $150,000 bounty on it, it's like, what are we doing here?
Well,
Now-
I think the important thing for people to realize too is like, there's a decent argument to be made that Ruth is just a crazy person. Like I personally think he was an asset, but you can make the argument that he's just a crazy person. Well, you put out a letter that says that there's some $150K bounty that's just sitting out there. There's a lot of crazy people in this country that could do something with that. But even worse, it can be used as a cover if there's a third attack against Donald Trump, assuming there hasn't already been 3. If there's another attack, they can say, "Oh, he was inspired by this 150K bounty." There's no deep state op being ran here, but the deep state actually released that document that made crazy people go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, I think we're getting to something really important, which is obviously, if let's just say hypothetically that this is orchestrated by the government. It doesn't make any sense because they wouldn't pick crooks, right? You wouldn't get some 20-year-old kid to do it. You'd find some old military vet who's a seasoned sniper. You wouldn't pick crooks, and you wouldn't pick this guy to do it either. So clearly that doesn't seem to be what's happening. But a second theory, closer to what you just said, is this. The U.S. government is well aware that there are lots of kooks out there. They might even be very specifically aware there's this kook named Crooks, and he's patrolling the Butler compound where Trump is supposed to speak. We also hear that he might be using this particular roof. He's got a plan. Why don't we just leave that roof unguarded?
Exactly.
Yep.
Why don't we just pretend like we missed that one? And then, oops. When the shots go off, boom, we get rid of the guy. Dead men don't tell any tales.
Exactly.
So this would be a very sneaky operation because I don't think that either of these 2 assassination attempts can be explained, at least not adequately, by incompetence. There's clearly an element of incompetence. So if you tell me, okay, you got DEI hiring at the Secret Service, and that's why the woman can't get a gun into the holster, I'm like, okay, I understand that. That's bureaucratically happening throughout our society. But if you tell me that people in the grounds told the cops, there's a guy on the roof, he's got a camouflage, he's got a backpack, he's got a gun, and Trump isn't bowled off the stage within 60 seconds or 90 seconds, that's a problem. Something's wrong with that picture.
It's a problem in many levels, but also there's no way you're going to use supplemental security details, which is what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, unless you have a line of communication between those 2 details. Like you have to, obviously, right? Like this is a secret effing service, folks. You're trying to keep the president alive. You're going to have a direct line of communication. They don't have one. And then after those shots ring out, they immediately point the finger to the local PD who's supplementing their security, and they say they didn't cover that rooftop. Now it comes out months later, once everyone's already moved on, and it turns out, Secret Service said that they had it covered. So they lied. But now Cheadle's already gone. The buck has already been passed.
Yeah.
People are already moving on. So I really do think that they were involved. I agree with you that it's highly unlikely that Crooks was in fact their guy. But I think the way he was removed from the chessboard immediately after those shots were fired tells me a lot. So I'll leave it at that until we get to the next platform.
Well, today we're also finding out that the second lunatic, and I don't like to call these people by their name. I don't like to show their face. I don't like to talk about their manifesto because it spurs on copycats. So the DOJ doing this really is something that I'm personally questioning myself. But we got other information about this second lunatic, and that he also allegedly, according to CNN, had 6 cell phones on him, 2 license plates, and a list of dates of Trump events a month in advance. This is according to the reporting now by CNN, if you could trust them or not, whatever. But it does highlight, possible situations of lie hop, my hop, let it happen, made it happen. I think we don't even have to debate that. I think we just have to have the pointed questions for the government to answer and say, hey, you need to answer these questions, and they're not. The fact that they're stalling, the fact that they're redacting information, that they're not helping investigators, that they're stalling members of Congress, they're stalling the governor of Florida, tells us everything we need to know about this particular event, in my opinion. And if they're not going to give us any answers, we're just going to logically come to the conclusion that they're somehow involved here. And I think that's the conclusion that a lot of people are coming to, as a lot of people expect more fireworks, more dangers for Donald Trump within the next 42 days.
I think the other really huge advantage that they had in crafting this counter narrative is that both of these people had, I believe, either registered or voted Republican in the past. I know that the Florida lunatic absolutely did, because he said that in his book that he was very sorry for having voted for Donald Trump in 2016, and he was going to make it up to the world and blah, blah, blah. I think the same thing happened with the dude in Pennsylvania. He was registered as a Republican, but I think it's highly likely that he was doing so because he wanted to vote in the primary against Trump. So I think in both accounts, kind of conservative, but obviously these people are acting out of an ideological stance that is not in alignment with the current leader of the Republican movement. But
isn't it safe to say from their attempted actions that they were both never Trump?
Yeah.
But no, there was some kind of Republican voter registration somewhere that proves it, according to Reddit.
But the reason I bring all that up is just that the counter narrative for their audience, the people that are watching MSNBC and CNN, is so easy. They go, you guys are such idiots. Obviously, the government's not involved. This was a Republican who did it. Yeah. It's like, oh, what a very opportunistic foil to have. Yeah, convenient.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of Republicans that I would look at as a suspect in a future attempt. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. No, kidding. But just saying, the whole idea of I just don't want us to get banned, right? But the whole idea of this, I do think something could be happening. Again, I try to be an optimist, right? It's like, I do hope that what has been going on with Trump, number one, it's so interesting how not shocked many people were when the first one happened. The event itself was shocking, but the idea that I think a lot of people were like, well, of course that was going to happen eventually. That's how long people had been getting used to this rhetoric, the rising of the temperature, this idea that Trump is bad news for people who are powerful. And then the second attempt happens, and it was kind of a blip. Obviously there wasn't a gun fired. We didn't get an epic, iconic photo of Trump. He's like, oh, I wish I could have made that putt. But it's like,
it's still significant. Yeah, it's so significant.
It's so significant that this is happening. It's happened within 3 months, and this is the political culture that we're in. And literally half of America is saying, if Trump is eliminated in some way, where does that leave us as a country? It's a very, very dangerous place to be. And
well, this I think the contrast, all you have to do to understand how weird this is just imagine for a second that a bullet had grazed Joe Biden's ear 2 months ago. Right. There would be, we would still
there would be tribunals. There'll be government re-education camps set up all over the United States saying these radical MAGA Republicans are dangerous. We need to re-educate them immediately.
They'd probably already be rounding up ARs and going all over the country.
This is a key point, that you would not be hearing things like, let's all lower the temperature. That only happens when their guy tries to take our guy out. The other thing worth noting that we shouldn't skip over is Trump's heroic response to both assassination attempts, which is so unusual that no normal person could be expected to react
Totally
in this
agree.
way. First of all, the good old, I'm a little annoyed I've been interrupted in my golf game. I mean, that's just too much. I was about to make this amazing putt. Then the second thing is posting on social media 0 for 2. I mean, who keeps score of assassination attempts against themselves?
Oh, I would never forget. I would keep count for sure.
And I think he's 3-0, honestly,
Maybe.
after the potential, I don't know, eye issue that some of the people that were at the last rally had.
Yeah, and that article went really under the radar. It was like half of the people standing behind him, but not the other half.
20
And
people.
I'm like out there Googling like energy weapons and things like that. And, but the funny thing is like I go down this rabbit trail where I'm like, how many plates of food did Trump just sit at the different seat? How many cars did he get in that were like wired to blow that he just, I'm like, I asked myself.
It's like Final Destination Presidential Edition.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like, how many times did God intervene to save Trump we don't know about?
Here's another point. This is a kind of a wild point, and it needs a little explanation. But assassination is in a way the sincerest form of flattery. And here's what I mean. Why are they trying to assassinate Trump? Nobody's trying to assassinate Paul Ryan. Right? Nobody's trying to assassinate. I mean, Mitt Romney, because what would be the point?
Yes.
So this guy is a larger than life figure. He's a very scary guy to the left. This is a theme, by the way, I explore in the new movie Vindicating Trump, is a defense of Trump's character and a defense of Trump as a man, because we all know about Trump's vices. Oh, he was a playboy, oh, he's an egomaniac. But no one talks about Trump's virtues, and courage, I think, is his supreme virtue. And Aristotle says that courage is the most important of the virtues, in part because it enables all the others.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and I'll be honest, like I never really looked at Trump as being this courageous person. I always saw his bravado, his public speaking ability as a product of his ego or his narcissism. He's very comfortable being on a stage. Of course he would be. He loves to be adored. He's going to enjoy that process. What I saw after Butler, when he's pumping his fist as there's blood streaming down his face, that you can't describe it as anything other than courageous. I mean, it was the most impactful political moment probably since George Bush's speech on the rubble of 9/11.
Yeah,
it was extremely powerful. It's something that you can't replicate. It's something you can't fake. That moment of looking and hearing gunshots and then still standing up and still addressing the crowd to keep the crowd calm and safe. That right there is absolutely unique and something you would look for in a different leader. I teach a lot of self-defense class where we do force-on-force situations. There's literal police officers that show up to the trainings that I help run that are running and cowering in the corner because of BBs that are being shot. All right. Now imagine real life scenarios where you get hit. I mean, that right there is something that, all of us would like to say we would do, but probably none of us would. Let's just be honest.
Yeah,
here.
you're overcoming like the hardwired animalistic dimension of your brain, which is telling you to flee, hide, everything like
Survive.
that. And something in him like transcended that, which is quite amazing. And the other thing I just want to mention is, look, I wasn't a Trump guy in 2016. I came around in 2020, but there's been so many more human dimensions and moments that we've seen out of him since Butler. Like, I think that he had this brush with death, and I do think he's known how serious what he's doing has been for a while. He's had every agency after him. He's had all of the smear campaigns, all of the hoaxes they put out, everything that's been happening since 2016. But something I think became very, very real for him in that moment, and I think it has changed him in a way that I personally just want to see how that plays out in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in this country are feeling the same way. Like he didn't get a lot of the things that he promised done in his first term, but it was also because he thought he could play ball with these people.
Yeah.
They tried to put him in prison for 700 years and then took a couple shots at the guy. He's like, yeah, I don't think they're going to play with me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to play along. So now, is he prepared to do what needs to be done? And that's still TBD.
Maybe
If
CNN's
he,
not going to
uh,
like me.
If he makes it to the election, as according to Congressman Matt Gaetz, there are now 5 assassination teams.
That's all?
Out there. Yes, 3 are allegedly foreign. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. Before we do, Martha, read off some of the super chats and make sure not to read off some of the bad words. Start off the one on the screen on YouTube, please.
So that's from Richin HH. was watching Candace Owens live earlier, and she did some investigating into Kamala's grandparents, and so far has found that she is a descendant of white slave owners from Jamaica.
Yep.
Wouldn't surprise me. Keep going, and we have a
That's been
bunch
known for
on
a
the
while.
Telegram as well. The latest one has a bad word in it.
Okay, we have Josh Friedman. Do we?
No. All the
Oh,
way at
sorry.
the bottom. All the way at the bottom.
Okay, so Switzerland play IT. Never forget Sophia.
Yes, never forget Sophia. Good luck, guy.
I'm not your buddy, guy. Two things. First, the odds that two crazy people managed to find holes in the SS perimeter within months of each other. Second, Routh was doing a very familiar tactic of CIA when getting cannon fodder.
He was also, I mean, to be doing the passports for Afghan soldiers, like it's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so
Do
ridiculous.
I just sign
a
up for an
rap
online
sheet?
course
Yeah,
to
a
start
felony
doing that?
rap sheet.
He's got WMD charges for God's sakes. Like,
Yeah. Keep going.
he wasn't on their radar; he was the radar.
Bain, COOF. No, show their names and faces and make fun of them. Rob them of clout and fear. Call them out
Don't say that.
for what they are.
And then we got two more above.
We do.
Go all the way above. Finboy Slick.
Flynn Boy Slick. As some might have guessed from the name, Clintina is Italian on her third daddy side. She recently went back to Italy for some upgrades. And then Kyle.
Up above.
Are we going to watch the video?
Up above. There's another super chat
Man,
here.
this is horrifying.
Finboy Slick says she took the opportunity to show off her heritage and let us hear her wonderful singing voice. So this is a clip from Finboy Slick that has unearthed some documentary footage.
I don't know where he found this footage.
This is footage of Clint Russell here.
Wow.
I don't know. Listen, I don't know if we should play it, but well, just play it anyway. Wow.
Ecco sono qui, Pippi cazzo e lunghe così mi chiamo. Credo proprio che una come me non è stata mai.
Finboy Slick, I don't know where you found this video footage, but wherever you did, we don't thank you for highlighting it and bringing it to our attention. As I think we have some of the best commenters in the
world.
game, in the industry, and we thank you.
Dude, they're making deep fakes. They're the best. They're the best people on the planet.
We got some really awesome human beings that are a part of the show that watch it, and we'll be playing that on the outro at the end of this show. Shouts out to Finboy Slick for making that amazing. For finding that amazing footage. As of course, let's continue on with the main story, especially after Congressman Matt Gaetz was speaking to Breitbart and described a situation where he spoke to someone at the DHS that described that currently there are 5 known assassination teams in the United States, 3 of which are foreign, that are out there to try to take the life of Donald Trump. Now, automatically kind of hearing this story, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Why aren't they stopped? And what other information are these people privy to? What else are they doing? And is this real, or is this some kind of like psyop here?
So they're on the radar.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
That's always number one.
yeah.
They're always on the radar first. So now they're on the radar.
To me, I have to imagine that there's always potential foreign threats for every president.
Yeah.
Always. Like, you got to imagine, because we're blowing up places and they're going to be pissed. What I don't understand is the 2 domestic teams and why we aren't getting details on that, if that is in fact actionable information. And I think that's what concerns me most, is that we actually have domestic hit squads that are just rampaging across the country. We don't know who they are, what they're doing, who they work for, who they're funded by. We don't know any of that.
We don't know who they are, but they're on the radar.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then it's just like, again, I just want to contrast this to, imagine this news dropping right before, like 45 days before Barack Obama versus John McCain's election. Like, it would be wall-to-wall coverage. It would be the biggest story in the world. And this is like, no one even cares.
And it's interesting because if this happened for Kamala Harris, I hope to God it doesn't. But if they were like, there's 5 assassination teams out there looking, they would call a lid on this campaign so fast.
They call lids when there is no attack.
So it's
Also,
crazy.
when we're in a bad place in a country where you have an election, and you have to ask the question of whether the regime that is in power might have something to do with trying to take out their main political opponent. Normally, this would be an outrageous thing to say, but we know that they are trying to do it by locking him up for life. So we start there.
Yeah.
That's our starting point. But we never had to think like this before, right? Nobody had to ask, could it be that the George W. Bush wants to take John Kerry out before the election? Right. What? This is just a new question in front of us, and it marks the political degradation of our country.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I think that prior generations did have to tussle with this. Like, particularly in the 60s, there was civil rights leaders, JFK. There's lots of arguments about RFK, and I think both were almost certainly taken out by the federal government. So, and multiple civil rights leaders were too. So I think that, like, what feels weird about it is that it felt like that was kind of the thing of the past. Like, we don't go to the extrajudicial violence level of political suppression. We have the internet. We have the capacity to censor you. We have the capacity to control the media and control the narrative. We don't need hard power anymore. The fact that they feel like they do, which I think that's what we're witnessing, is a really concerning development.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we did have the Clinton list, so maybe they were using, a little bit.
Yeah, and of course, going back to JFK, there was suspicion that dropped on LBJ because, again, cui bono, who benefits, who stepped in to fill his shoes. But of course, that was within the Democratic Party. And even with the civil rights activists, you basically had two wings of the Democratic Party at war with each other.
That's true.
No one thinks that, like, Nixon was behind it, So, I think this is, we're in a very difficult place.
I do think that it exposes something because, it's very dangerous for the regime to come out. Listen, this hard power move, showing their cards, so to speak, that is a last ditch effort, right?
It's desperation.
It proves that all of the other tactics have not been successful. It makes me believe that they see some information that Trump is cruising towards a victory, and it's really the last opportunity is to try to stop him in this way. And it is very dangerous for the regime, for the deep state, to do it in this way because they operate in the shadows. They'd rather people not be paying attention, to think that the deep state's just this fake thing that Trump came up with or whatever. And now people are saying, people who haven't been saying for a long time, new people are saying, this deep state thing, this regime thing, this Trump being taken out by people within the government. That is a new development in my lifetime.
I think what's super dangerous about this is, like, if there is a successful attempt, and God forbid, because I really do not want to see that happen, but if there is, you will have half of the country basically 100% convinced that the federal government took out the next president of the United States. You will have the other half of the country convinced that whatever the narrative is that they spin is in fact reality, that it was just some lone lunatic gunman. I don't know how you ever put this country back together in that paradigm. And that's assuming that it doesn't immediately go hot. Like, it could go immediately hot too. For a lot of reasons, but definitely Trump needs to be safe for the next 45
Well, the corporate media also has a way of radicalizing people and kind of egging them and engaging, kind of encouraging them to create violence, just like we saw during the BLM riots. But there was a lot of other things that happened before that led up to that particular situation. And it definitely does seem, because I've been screaming about this for 15 years, that there is a radicalization effort by the corporate media meant to make Americans hate each other and fight each other. It's something that I think we're coming to the precipice at. I think we're coming to a very dangerous moment at right now that truly is not a comfortable one to be in, as even Donald Trump has his own questions about what is happening here, as he just released an official statement saying that the DOJ and FBI are mishandling the second assassination attempt on his life, saying specifically, quote, the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Department of Justice, and the FBI are mishandling and downplaying the second assassination attempt on my life since July. The charges brought against the manic assassination assassin are a slap on the wrist. If the DOJ and FBI cannot do their job honestly and without bias and hold the aspiring assassin responsible to the full extent of the law, Governor Ron DeSantis and the state of Florida have already agreed to take the lead on the investigation and prosecution. That's an official statement. It's good to see that Donald Trump and the governor of Florida are actually on the same page here. And Donald Trump, I think, was shocked and surprised by some of the statements that DeSantis made recently on Fox News, describing a situation where the feds are kind of not helping him in this investigation.
Yeah, the Ron DeSantis redemption arc for is in full display right now. So
Literally, as soon as his campaign ended, he became a normal human being again.
Wasn't that weird?
It was just when he was running, he was just like so afraid.
Yeah.
It's a good thing because I think if Trump gets in the next time around, he's going to need some bureaucratic infighters who are obsessed with the minutia of public policy and know how to fumigate these public buildings. And I think DeSantis is one of those people.
I agree. I think he and Vivek on two different kind of layers of it would be amazing 1-2 punch.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people kind of joining Team Trump that you never would have expected them to join. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and it's truly a weird kind of team to see that definitely is pushing back against a lot of the more kind of establishment, corporatist, globalist individuals that have for so long reigned without ever being questioned. We're going to move over soon to the next platform where we could actually talk about anything we want, which is going to be really fun. Before we do, we want to tell you about one of our sponsors. That, of course, is Land of Biltong. This is Biltong. It's the closest thing you could compare it to is, of course, beef jerky. It's super clean, no preservatives, no dyes, no sugars. It's really awesome. It has all the fat, all the cartilage on there. We put one on the table for everyone if they want to try it out. I really love this stuff. It's really good, and it's a family, small-owned business that supports a lot of independent media. It's also a family-friendly snack, low in carbs, packed with protein, making Biltong the ultimate health snack. Biltong is a great source of iron and serves as a source of several other essential nutrients, including magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins, which translates into exceptional gains in all aspects of life. If you follow any high-meat, protein-based diet, Biltong should be an essential part of your diet. Code WRC for free shipping, and we have another promo code WRC10 for 10% off purchases over $45. Landofbiltong.com. We're going to put it in the description, and we'll put it in the comment section, since, of course, working with these family-owned businesses really is the way to go. Peer-to-peer, one-on-one. You guys like us, you'll support them, you'll like their products. Jason was like, do you want me to shill this for you? I'm like, I want you to try it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. Be honest about it. Truth is more important than anything else, and I would say that this is one of the best companies that I have ever worked with. I really love their products, and I think you will too. Landofbiltong.com is the website. And now we will be going over to this platform that we are currently on the front page of. This is it. We're going to move over. Once we do, the conversation gets a lot more interesting, a lot more spicier. Before we do, Dinesh, where can people find out more information about you?
Well, these days I'm driving all traffic to our movie website. It's vindicatingtrump.com. The cool thing is you just type in your zip code or you put in your city and boom, all the theaters where the movie's playing. It opens this weekend. We're doing a normal theatrical, which means hundreds of theaters all over the country, nationwide. And I make movies. I mean, they're for the theater. It's the best way to experience them. So vindicatingtrump.com.
Yeah, there's the difference between just watching something on your computer or your cell phone than when you're actually in a movie theater, when you're actually able to hone in all the information. And that's why there's so much propaganda in a lot of these Hollywood movies that subliminally play on your subconscious. But now, what we're seeing the Daily Wire do, what you're doing, having people in theaters, this is the time to go out there and actually support independent content creators and bring out your friends and family members. Go to the movies, and you're supporting good people doing good things.
It's an end run around the censors, right?
Exactly.
Because the theaters are just a different megaphone, and that's a way that the left can't stop us. And so you're right. If we can keep doing it, it's a great way to get our message out. And it's a movies can touch the head and the heart. So they have a persuasive power at different levels. it's very different telling someone about something than having them see it for themselves.
Exactly.
For sure.
And experience it, especially in a dark room with the lights and everything else kind of going off at the same time. That's why I decided to go watch the Matt Walsh documentary recently. I saw the trailer for your film there. I'm going to go see your film because I think this is the kind of low-level forms of activism that I think are really critically important. Jason, where can people find out more information about you?
Man, just on the X platform, I've been rebuilding for a year since I've been back. It's the Jason Rink, R-I-N-K, at X, Twitter. And right now, pinned to my post is a brand new documentary just dropped today. You can check out, and we'll be talking about on the other side here.
You also made a very spicy documentary that
Yes.
YouTube doesn't like
That's
people
right.
talking
They don't
about.
like it at all.
But yeah, you do great documentary work as well. So I've known you for quite a while now.
Been a while.
So always great to have you here as well. Clint,
Yo, I don't look
new in the game, but bussing and working very hard.
I don't look as buxom as the prior video that you showed of me, but anyways, at Liberty Lock Pod on X, Liberty Lockdown is the show. Please, there you go. You can see the uncensored version of that at Liberty Lockdown. Anyways, I just wanted to make a quick note that the Matt Walsh documentary. Please stop playing the song. The Matt Walsh documentary has already doubled its production cost at the box office alone. That doesn't include all of the additional revenue that they're going to get from it. I've been very open about my disagreements with the Daily Wire, particularly when it comes to military adventurism. But I am definitely rooting for them to continue to be successful. I think that any sort of media outlet that is going against the corporate narratives is like, we need them to succeed, and I hope yours follows in that suit.
Yeah, we all need to come together during this key crucial time, put our differences aside, put our egos aside, and really kind of try to be there for the American people more than ever. We have one more super chat here. Martha, can you read that and then tell us where we could find out more information about you too?
Absolutely. So Finboy Slick says, I had a feeling you'd love this one, Luke. Hopefully we get to see the rest. You missed all the bouncing. I made 3 more, but you'll have to wait.
3 more.
They are best in small doses.
Oh, man.
And you can find me at Bueno for Miami on X and IG.
Thank you so much.
Some of you creeps are into that, by the way. I know you are. You're sitting at home and you're going,
The bouncing sounds fun.
that's my thing.
Hey, Martha's into it. Thank you so much, Martha, for pushing the buttons. Again, we have an hour left of this particular broadcast that we are going to be going off on. The next platform, I think we already have a caller for LukeUnfiltered.com, but you could be the caller tomorrow. We return 6 p.m. Eastern. Still have an hour of the show. But Friday, come out Friday. We're doing an in real life meetup, which is going to be really fun and really awesome. And it's a way of actually networking and finding like-minded individuals in this world, which you should really start to come together with more than ever.